Hey guys, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Podcast. Welcome to another edition of ReWatching Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 3, Making Friends and Influencing People. I'm just going to be starting off by giving you guys the plot summary for this episode, then talking about my general thoughts, as well as some foreshadowing and Easter eggs I noticed in this episode. So let's just get started with that plot summary for the episode, which says Coulson learns from Agent Gemma Simmons, who is working undercover within Hydra, that their next planned target for recruitment is Donnie Gill. And Ward explains to Skye that Hydra brainwashes promising recruits such as Creel. S.h.i.e.L.D. traces Gill to a Hydra ship in Morocco, while Hydra sends Simmons with a team to find Gill themselves as a test of her loyalty. Fitz reveals to Ward that Gill is the target, and Ward warns that Gill was a Hydra asset already and that Hydra would try to reactivate his brainwashing. Agent May, who knows of Simmons' mission, allows her and Gill to escape and to maintain Simmons covered. And Hydra successfully re-brainwashes Gill. Skye manages to shoot Gill and he falls into the water and freezes, but the government forces are later unable to locate his body. Whitehall decides to promote Simmons despite her failure to retrieve Gill, and Ward tells Skye that her father is alive and offers to bring her to him. So that's the plot summary for this episode, guys. As you can see, a decent amount, a little bit happened in this one. I enjoyed this episode I like the throwback of bringing back Donnie Gill into this episode. I like that we discover where Simmons was. I know for those of us who are rewatching this, we already knew that she was undercover with Hydra, but I remember when I first watched this, learning that that's where it was and feeling a little more like sympathetic to the fact that she was on a mission as opposed to having just left Fitz. So I like that we learned that in this episode. What else do we get? We get a lot of Hydra in this episode. We get to see a little bit of how Hydra kind of operates, through the eyes of like Simmons being undercover, which I enjoy. That was a cool little element. We see a little bit of Whitehall using his what's it called? The compliance, like the training, like the brainwashing method. We see him using that, I believe, on Agent 33. I think that's who it was. Guys, let me know in the comments below if I got that, if it was Agent 33 or not, that he was trying to brainwash. I can't remember exactly what her name was. I know she comes back, obviously, throughout this season. But yeah, I like that we kind of get to learn a little bit about that. We see that he's the one kind of, this episode's really focused around that a lot, that theme and that idea of that Hydra has to pretty much use brainwashing to get certain people to work for them, and how it's really effective when they do have it, like when it ends up working. So that was a pretty interesting element we got to discover in this episode. What else do I have written down? Gem undercover. Oh, I have a little line that May says, "Experience doesn't make it any easier to take someone out." And I thought that was an interesting line for May. We obviously know, we still haven't discovered in the rewatch, we haven't quite got to her Calvary backstory yet, but we all kind of know how it is. So that's an interesting tie to that. But it's also an interesting tie within this episode, because at the end, Skye takes her first life, which we learned in this episode. Trips at one point had asked her if she'd ever killed anybody, and he was like, no. She was like, no, I haven't taken anybody out. And by the end of this episode, she has taken out Donnie Gill, or I don't think he comes back. Guys, let me know in the comments below if he does ever come back or not. I'm pretty sure he doesn't, though. But I thought that was an interesting tie, her saying that quote, and then I'm tying it back in at the end of this episode. And obviously, it's a little bit of foreshadowing as well to learning about May's background and her backstory with the Calvary nickname and all that stuff. So what else do I have written down? Donnie Gill's back. Fitz is questioning where Gemma is, which I like about this episode, that we're seeing Fitz is starting to kind of put himself back together a little bit. Like he knows that the Gemma he's talking to isn't the real Gemma. He knows that she's not there. He knows that this is part of the damage, and it's part of his coping. But I like that we get at one point he tells he tells his own hallucination to go away, which I like as it kind of, it shows his progress. I don't know if the whole thing with Ward, that scene always wrenches me, and going through that, like, Fitz is that one guy who can just make me tear up a little. He pulls out my heartstrings especially in this season with all the stuff he deals with. but I've talked about that before. I'm not going to go too much into it. What else do we have? We see that Ward and Skye have a little bit of a talk twice in this episode. Finds out that Ward tells Skye that her father is still alive and even offers to take her one day to him. And we see that Skye reacts really shocked to that. She's like, she doesn't know if she can trust Ward with this information. She doesn't know if she's been manipulated or not. She's really shocked. She's like, can my family kind of still be alive? She's been asking these questions for so long, and I feel like her character, even in the last little part, like since she's kind of been a part of S.h.i.e.L.D., hasn't really been thinking too much about her parents as much, I feel. Because like in this season, I know we're only 3 episodes in, but we haven't seen her like focusing on that, not investigating it like she was in the previous season. She had already gotten some answers and kind of learned she didn't want to look too much further, but now I feel like Ward bringing this up obviously resurfaces those feelings with her, which I just thought was a really great way to kind of end this episode off. What else do I have written down? Another thing about Fitz, when Fitz finds Ward, that scene I already mentioned how their whole interaction was really intense, but I also like that we see that Fitz, is willing to be a little like, we see Fitz's dark side a little bit again too, which I get, I'd want revenge on the guy who did this brain damage to me too, and so we see him almost, just take the oxygen out of Ward's cell and almost kill him, and they bring it up at the end of the episode too when Coulson like mentions it. He's like, I don't like exactly how that went, and Fitz is like, well, I didn't kill him. He's like, you almost did, and he's like, but I didn't, and so I like that we at least see that Fitz still has like his moral compass, but we do get to see that like little bit of glimpse of that dark side, which we get throughout the show more as the seasons build on. What else do I have written down? Just a few things about Gemma, her dealing with Hydra. I really like that she's the one who had to go undercover. It makes sense the most too. She fits in the story the most for that, like in a sense, like scientists would just kind of want to just do science, and she fits into that. She's like, and I really like that they're all kind of like, oh, she's not the best liar, and then May's like, well, she can handle herself, and she is. And we see throughout this episode Gemma really stepping up in that undercover role, not like embracing her strengths as opposed to being, trying to like focus too much on her weaknesses, which is she's not the best liar, and focusing more on those selective truths, which really work well for her and her character in particular. What else do I have written down here? May knows about Simmons, I already said that. And then Fitz and Coulson talk. And then Skye tells. Yeah, so that's pretty much all my notes I had for this episode. Not too many things. It was a very Hydra-focused episode. But be sure to let me know, guys, in the comments below if there was anything I missed that you in particular liked about this episode or didn't like about this episode. I always like hearing you guys' comments. Thanks for joining me today, guys, and have a good one.